My name is Master Raven Mayne in the SCA. I am in the Kingdom of Atenveldt. I have been doing heraldic banners for about 18 years or so. This class is not really going to touch on heraldic history or anything like that, because if this is the process that me and my wife go through. We are both laurels, but neither one of us are heralds. Even though I've done a lot of heraldic work in different aspects, we are not heralds. So we work in creating full achievements, heraldic achievements for individuals that come to us. Sometimes I go to them. Actually, we started off. One of our friends, we were doing a demo, and she brought along her laptop, and she showed us that they had just our friend and her husband went to London, and they came back with a CD that had a bunch of heraldic things on it, and her idea was to have people come to the demo and create their own full achievement in the class. And me and my wife did, and we really liked it a lot. I am actually known in our kingdom and in a lot of things in arts that I do is shading. So the first heraldic one that me and my wife did was just regular line drawing, colored it in, and stuff like that. And then I decided to do a banner out of it and things like that. So we've been, like I said, we've both been doing it for quite a while, and we're going to go through the PowerPoint. Basically, it's just little segments of little different sections of how or what each part of heraldic achievement looks like. And I'll go through some different stuff, and then at the end I'll show you some of the artwork that I've done, kind of give you a better example of what I'm talking about. But again, this is just kind of going through. It's more of through an artistic lens rather than a heraldic strictly lens. So there's no terms or anything that you really have to remember. Heraldic achievement coat of arms designs for SCA artists. We try and tend towards the artist section part of it rather than heraldically speaking, only because I do a lot of, as I'll explain in this class, we do a lot of going back and forth and finding things that are better than heraldic, that's actually historical, because these are made for somebody personally. And a good majority of the banners that we make are for people who are being elevated, usually, or kings and queens and stuff like that. So this PowerPoint was created by me and my wife, and I'm trying to always improve this class. I've only been doing this class not very long, so as I go, just bear with me that some of these things are a little interesting on getting through the PowerPoint. So first thing, your kingdom. Each kingdom should have, most of the time, often than not, rules or regulations, guidelines, sumptuary on what you as an individual can and cannot have. Now, most of these have been written or are strictly for the purpose of using these on illuminated manuscripts or scrolls, in our case in the SCA, or what you can have on there. Usually these are with patent of arms, normally on a normal occasion, but it could be on most any scrolls. So some kingdoms have none whatsoever. They have nothing restricting anything. And other kingdoms have manuals. Literally probably like, anywhere upwards of, probably conservatively, probably like at least 10 pages of what a person can and cannot have. So though I haven't run into any real issues in my kingdom where a herald says, does that follow our sumptuary or not? Until recently, there wasn't anything in our rules or sumptuary that actually denoted anything beyond putting these on a scroll. So before you do anything, remember to look in your kingdom on what you can and cannot have. So again, Heraldic Achievement Coat of Arms for their SARs, and this is, again, speaking from an artist's perspective. Heraldic device is just display of items chosen to represent the person. So your SCA device is usually the main focus of your full achievement. That's where I consider it the center of how we're going to assemble everything. So everything starts there. SCA achievement is an all-encompassing, is in full depiction of a heraldic items the person is entitled to. Again, check your kingdom for sumptuary specifics. That's basically what some kingdoms, for example, you can only have, which I'll explain later, one supporter, what they can stand on, what's, if they can have a helm and those kind of things. So, so it's a lot of difference, a lot more than just their shield. So heraldic achievement coat of arms is used to show, in history, is used to show personal and/or family affiliations. So most of the time they were on manuscripts, but sometimes they were even put on buildings. So if you looked in history, there's a lot of stuff about that has full, would show full achievement of families. So this is just an example really quick of how we work, how a design is kind of put together. So on the left, on the left is what we get from the CD. So these are, we'll go through all of the different choices that we have, or examples that we have from throughout history. And majority of what I have or what we have is from Europe. So it's mostly just full achievements from the European area. And this is what they kind of give us. So this is what we kind of piece together, and we'll show the person who wants it or who would like to have a banner from us. This is, we tell them not to pay attention to the colors or necessarily any of the figures, just roughly, this is kind of what you're looking for. So what I did is as you can see, what I do is majority of the time I leave your SCA device alone. Whatever got passed gets passed. I don't use any, I personally don't use any artistic license unless it's, really requested by the person that we're talking to. But I found a better cat, because the cat that's on there, as you can see, is I didn't really like that one very much. And the thing on the left, you can see on the screen, that is a heraldic interpretation of a monkey. I believe it looks to me, or to us, looked more like a weasel. So we didn't like that. So I searched through the internet and I found a better picture or representation of a monkey. So you can see the difference on where we start and where we kind of finish. So some of the things that we kind of go through when we're assembling stuff, we get their device. We decide what, if and what kind of shield shape they want. It could be any kind of shield shape. So most of the people pick the standard. As I think I'll show later on too, there's a lozenge that women can have. They don't want a shield. We'll go through helms, different kinds of helms if you're able to have one. Like I said, your kingdom's going to be may have rules and guidelines for that. Some helms, they can have helms, some have to be certain colors, some can only face certain directions. And some kingdoms, like I mentioned, have nothing. So that's part of the crest will go on top of the helm, which I'll show examples later on. You can have supporters. We try and stick with living items. We've extended outside of those realms on occasion, but we're trying to make sure that they were at least legendary, mythical, that there are some sort of living animal. I've done even trees. Recently, I did a cactus, which was kind of odd. But we try and tend towards having living items as supporters, which will be on each side of your shield, which I'll show you. Then you have the torse, which is on top of the helm, which is where comes the mantling. The compartment of the base is the base where everything sits on. Then we'll usually have a ribbon on the bottom. You can see on the right-hand corner with the bottom of the sun. It's usually a motto. It could be in almost any language, usually in the persona of the person. You don't have to have a motto, but it's good. This is one thing that we kind of use for the banners. Add-ons are just stuff that usually goes around it. So sometimes they want a depiction of their, their kids, or, something else that means something specific to them. So the things we do stick to is the society regulations. So, obviously we don't put anything on there that you don't have SCA wise that is protected, like anything of the peerages or coronets or things like that that are specifically reserved. And if we don't put those on banners if you don't have those. So try to stay away from those. We don't have those. In our design, we try and work with balance. We try and make sure that when you look at it, it's kind of, for me as an artisan, when I paint it, I try and make sure that the colors are balanced all over. If there's red on one part of it, I try and, figure out how to balance red on the other side, north, just, up top and bottom, make sure that all the colors kind of balance out. I use a lot of different shades of the color when I use it. And you don't have to. You can paint just a strict color on it, but I use different shades. We try and work with size. The story that I usually tell is that my friend he couldn't decide if he wanted butterflies or dragons, and we were trying to figure it out because we try to make it so that theoretically they could be the same size. And I think if we made the butterfly the same as the dragon, it would be like Mothra versus Godzilla. So I encouraged him to either pick butterflies or a dragon rather than one of each, and he picked butterflies. So it worked out a lot better. And then color. So colors go all the way throughout, and you could use the same color for all the colors throughout the stuff. But like I said, I use a lot of different shades of the colors beyond the SCA device to just remain. For me, it just aesthetically looks better. So the first thing is a shield shape. So when you have your past device, whatever it is, we try and pick a shield. So these are different kind of shield shapes. And as I mentioned, usually, as you see our friend Ladia's device that's there with the octopus and the arrows, this majority of the time, that's the shield that everybody picks for whatever reason, but probably I'm thinking that mostly that's what we use or used to use when we're submitting our devices, just regular shield shapes. So sometimes we get different shapes and sizes. And the lozenges has been historically usually used for ladies. So they have that option when we do ones for them. The helms is where it may be simple or a little more detailed depending on who we're doing it for. Majority of the heraldic ones that you find throughout history, touching on history a bit, usually are very obviously just strictly European, mostly English, some Spanish, French, but there's not very much more. There's not really a whole lot of variations that we found. And then when we do, my wife does a lot of the helping with the design and the tracing, and I do all the painting, and then she does all the sewing. So we kind of work together on that. But when it comes to helms, we work with the person that we're doing the banner for, and we'll give them many options. Obviously, historically speaking, when you're doing heraldic achievements, you're not going to find Viking helms on them. So when we do ones for a Viking persona, person with a Viking persona or Viking Norse specific, we'll find one, or we haven't really got anything too out there, but we have done Middle Eastern or Turkish or whatever. We'll find a helm if we can that will better represent that person. And again, it depends on your kingdom whether you can even have a helm for your full achievement. These are the things that go on top of things. These are crests. So these are usually what we have a lot of the options. So when we're doing full achievements for individuals, and they want to have certain things on there, this is an option to put that there. So sometimes we'll put, they call cooped which is a pelican head. Sometimes we put the pelican, the nest, and that's what we do. But heraldically, a lot of these crests were like usually part of their charge. So like if they had an arm or a boat or a certain colored animal on their SCA devices, what they would usually use on top of the crest, on top that would go on top of the helm. But we've done a lot of things before. Laurels, we put laurel wreaths around their stuff, and so that's another option of putting something that you want on the full achievement. So you don't have to have a helm. So we've had quite a few individuals who want to have something else. So something that would normally be a crest, we can just put directly on top of the shield, or we can put anything on there. So the one on the left is me and my wife's badge that we have for our household, and we just had a sun behind it, and found a really fine, fancy bordered lozenge. And on the right is from one of our friends, Countess Strahamir. We just have her device on there, and she was a Lady of the Rose, so we put a rose on there. And part of her will be full mantling. So, but you don't have to have a helmet if you don't want to. Most people choose not to have a helmet, especially if they're not a fighter, but it's their choice. Here we get to supporters. So again, we try and pick something that is living, or theoretically, or legendary or mythically living, like Pegasus, or obviously human, rabbit, and stuff. On the bottom, you can see like Pegasus and the rabbit. That's where we kind of get into the options that I mentioned before, where we're trying to pick something that's close to the same size. We have done it where we've done this and it's been okay, but we try and urge people to try and pick something that could be equal size or close to. It kind of balances out a little better. And again, we've done trees and we've done different things, and like I said, a cactus. So they could be different things. So supporters are usually representation of someone that has supported you. So it could be your mentor, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, whatever that may be. I just did one for someone who wanted a scorpion because it represented their horoscope, because they feel that kind of that helped them, support them, their horoscope supported them throughout their design, so that they picked that. Those are supporters. So you can pick anything, again, like represent your spouse, your kids, household. It could be like bearing a nickname, your kingdom, like I think it's Atlantia, or Trimaris has something that represents their, I think it's called Spike, if I'm not mistaken. It's like a seahorse monster thing. So those are the things that you can pick. So supporters are usually something that you have to think about, or just something that you really like. The next is supporter stance. So you get into this when you would do an SCA device for yourself, but we kind of use the same template. We're trying to use the same template. We're trying to position the supporters for the full achievement, and each one has a different name. Obviously, when we're doing these, for most people, we're not going through the names. We're just kind of go, how would you like it to look? Majority of people do rampant. Also, we do stick with facing, either the animal is facing out towards the viewer or towards the shield. We try not to have, like I said, like you can see there on the rampant regardant. We don't usually have it facing away. In our kind of belief or understanding, we feel supporters should be, looking towards you rather than, and supporting you rather than looking away from you. That's just our thought on how we design stuff. But you can have it, we have had it looking out, supporters looking out towards, like I said, the viewer, or towards the main device. So, but there's different stances that you can use, a lot of different stances that you can use for your supporters when it comes to certain animals. Like on the left, the owl, sometimes with the wings out, the leg up, or just the wings down. So there's a lot of different things you can do with whatever your supporters may be. this is the torus and the mantling. So again, the torus is the twisted, what would look like twisted rope or fabric that would sit on top of the helm, and then in reality, the mantling would be attached to that mantling, be attached to that torus, which then goes on the helm. But you don't have to have a helm to have a torus and mantling. You can have, like some of the pictures that you saw, you can have just the mantling, you can have the torus and the mantling. When it comes to design wise, it doesn't, they all don't have to, be on there. So whatever looks good is what we do. And the torus and mantling are the colors of whatever your SCA device is. So whatever your colors are for your SCA device, that's the colors that we use for the torus and the mantling. And when it comes to mantling, is the biggest, one of the biggest, let's say the biggest, the most wide variety that we have on the CD. There is so much mantling on it, and it goes sometimes we get to the point where we're like, do you want it to look like, leaves? Do you want to look like feathers? We kind of have to go simplistic when we go, because there's just so many designs when it comes to mantling on how it flows and what it looks like. So there's lots and lots of choices for mantling. There's just little, it could be, something like in the center top where it's kind of fabric just folded in there. So there's just lots of different choices when it comes to mantling. So the compartment and the base is what everything sits on. So it could be grass and dirt. We've done it stone, stage. We put them on clouds. We just used a banner, so they were on the ribbon that the model was on. We used that. Anything that kind of simulates or looks like a base. I think we've kind of stayed pretty strict on when it comes to that, having something that everything sits on, and it helps with what I call framing. So everything that I call framing, that's the word I use, and that's basically the supporters on each side, the torus, mantling, helmet, whatever on the top, and then your base that kind of frames everything around your shield. So that's how we kind of picture everything and make sure everything fits on there. But your compartment or base word definition is pretty much interchangeable when it comes to whatever your full achievement is standing on. Again, we've also used castle, like a castle wall. We've used filigree, which is filigree is kind of a design that we've used. We can have them balance on that. The stage is usually there, a platform. But those are just some of the examples that you can have of, and it just kind of overall design. It's just something, another thing that you can kind of choose of what you want on the base. The next thing is a banner or a motto for your motto. Mottos were, people usually think I have a motto, so it's something I have to, it's set in stone, sometimes literally in history. But families picked mottos all the time and they changed mottos all the time. So they never really had one, usually have one major motto, especially when it comes to a family, because then, the children grow up and they, sometimes they want their own motto, whatever. So it's usually hard for people to pick their mottos, what they want on there. So that's why we usually leave it last, because we give them time to think about it. And I could do almost everything else, or me and my wife can both do almost everything else. And then mottos usually save till the end. So. But the other design part of it is the banner. So the banner that holds the motto can be, again, almost as wide variety as the mantling. It could be any shapes, any sizes. When we're doing it, we try and hopefully they give us a motto early, because then we can pick something that has something we can fit the motto on. So in the past I've had a symbol. So it was just like a one symbol they wanted on there, but it was what they wanted. Some of them are super long. So we try and pick a banner that we can stretch out and maneuver and do whatever we need, so that way the model fits on there. And I've done them in multiple languages. So We try not to use Google Translate as much as possible. So we have over the years have found people usually that usually have like a master's in that language or something of the like, so that way we get something that's specifically what they, actually is in the language that they want. So I've actually done very few that's actually in English, but I use a lot of Old English fonts. So, and then, different fonts, you can use all kinds of different fonts when you get into that too. So that's a lot more creative area that you can, stuff you can think about. So. What I kind of mentioned before, it's add-ons. And these are like little things that we can kind of add to things. So you can add a spear with a banner on it, or like a bird that has there, a coop bird who has a, if you like archery or really into archery, we can add that. On the top left is a pillar. So part of her device was a Medusa head, so we were able to put Medusa head on there. Sometimes, which I'd rather not do, but if I can add it, we do add things that are more modern symbol-wise. So I can't remember the exact reason, but the symbol in the bottom right-hand corner is actually, it has something to do with Boba Fett, I think, or the Mandalorian. So we added that on part of the banner, so because they're really big fan of that. Like, again, I don't normally do that, but you can do that. So any kind of symbols and stuff like that is part of something that you like, can be added on to the overall after you've done the torso, the mantling, helm, supporters, base, everything else like that. Sometimes I'll put it down below the shield or on the right side of the shield, or I try and, again, balance it out so it's not too much, is what we're going to get to. So we try and stay away from, adding someone's entire list of everything that they want, because what happens in this example, my wife actually added, a basin, basically like the kitchen sink. So you don't really want to add too much stuff, because there's really no focal area. So you're almost kind of lost on where to look first and then what to look at more. So everything kind of gets too jumbled and lost. So we try to encourage people not to not, have everything, to try and just pick the things that really mean that to that person. So, and as you can see, if you have just way too much, it is too much, just too much to look at and too much to have. So we encourage people to try and have, again, just the things that mean the most to them. This is the SCA options that we have. So they have the peerages of the Knight, the Laurel, the Pelican, and the MOD, Master of Defense. Also, we've done cornets for everything you can think of. I try and for most of the time, I try and figure out or get copies or pictures or even rough designs of cornets for people, those who have had cornets over time, or when king and queen step down and they get, their counties or the duchy cornets. I try and use the ones that they have and try and mimic their cornets. Usually it'll sit on the helm, not always, but it does sit on the helm. So I'll try and make, the duchy ones with the strawberry leaves and stuff like that. But I've also done, as you can see there on the, on the bottom right, I've done, cap maintenance. We've done pelicans on top of their cornet, on top, onto the helm. So I put that all on there. Or we just did the laurel wreaths on the helm instead of around the shield. So there is a ways to add these around to it, and just a happenstance about how we could piece all of these together. Even after I've done someone's banner, I've been able to go back to it, and if they've gotten one of these accolades or have been, you know, one crown, I can go back and actually add these things to their banner. So you can do that too. So if you ever happen to get one of these things, you can, most of the time you can figure out a way to add that to your banner after you're done with it for the first time. These are just like some examples. If anybody wants, I'll have some more examples after the class. But these are just some of the things that I've done for individuals. The left was the black unicorn is obviously part of his device. The left is this on the seahorse on the design on the left. It's from one of the people that support him, and he had 2 cats, so I put the cats on the bottom of the grass. I've done my grass. Now that I look at it, I've done my grass different since then. So on the upper right, if you can see, I've done emperor penguins. That's what she likes. So she wanted to put on water, so we have that. The middle one is, like I mentioned before, our friend that has Melissa of Munster Hall, Countess Mistress. She has a Medusa head for hers, and we've had her on a lozenge, and we have her county on top. And she has, can't remember off the top of my head the gods we have on either side, but one was peace and one is war. So we have one on either side, and then sleeping lion, and then just is a representative of her husband. But I did it on pillars, and there are pillars that I found historically. So I put their faces on the tops of the columns. In reality, those designs come from the bottom. I think they're bottom of the pillars that they found in a large underwater well. They're about this. I'm trying to figure out a better way to describe how big they are, but they're about the size of a Volkswagen, and they weigh a couple tons. And one of them was upside down, one of them was right side up. So, but they have Medusa heads carved into them, so I use those for hers. And you can't really see too well in the middle one. And but I did something with the eyes. Now I normally don't do anything with the shield like that I mentioned earlier, but for hers I put some reflective kind of sparkly, not reflective, yeah, reflective kind of paint in the eyes, so that way when somebody's looking at her banner and it hits the right light, the eyes on the Medusa will kind of glow. So, but if anybody has any questions on that, I kind of ran through everything. So everything on the class. And the handout, I think, has a little bit better kind of examples. I'm still kind of adding to it, but if you copy the handout I put in the chat, it's on a Google Doc. So on the handout. So as I add to it and make it better, hopefully it'll change over time. So if you go back to it maybe later on, I'm trying to add pictures, more examples on there. So if anybody has any questions about anything that I talked about, I can answer them.